My name is Emily Carter. I'm 27 years old, and I work as an operations manager for a growing logistics company in Chicago. For 2 years, I believed I had built a career I could be proud of. I worked hard. I stayed late. I solved problems other people didn't want to deal with. And I trusted my boss. Her name was Victoria Bennett. Victoria was a powerful, ambitious woman in her early 50s. She owned the company with her husband and had built it from a small warehouse into a successful regional business. But there was one thing Victoria valued more than her company. Her son. Daniel Bennett. Daniel and I had been dating for almost 3 years. And I thought I knew him. I was wrong. Because when I discovered what he had been hiding from me, I ended our relationship. I thought that would be the end of my personal connection to the Bennett family. I couldn't have been more wrong. Because Victoria didn't see my breakup with her son as a personal decision. She saw it as betrayal. And within weeks, she made it her mission to destroy my career. What she didn't know was that during my 2 years working for her company, I had discovered something very important. I had kept records. I had saved emails. And I had noticed things that most employees never saw. Victoria thought she was firing a heartbroken employee. She didn't realize she was pushing the one person who knew exactly where to look. And that was the beginning of the end. When I joined Bennett Logistics, I was 25. The company wasn't huge, but it was growing quickly. We handled deliveries for several regional retailers and operated 2 warehouses outside Chicago. My job was to coordinate operations. That meant managing schedules, checking inventory, communicating with drivers, solving customer problems, and making sure everything ran smoothly. It was stressful. But I loved it. Victoria noticed my work almost immediately. She often told me, "Emily, you're one of the most reliable people here." Those words meant a lot to me. I wanted to build a real career. And Victoria seemed like the kind of boss who rewarded hard work. Then I met her son. Daniel was charming. He was confident. He knew exactly what to say. When we started dating, everything moved quickly. Victoria seemed thrilled. She invited me to family dinners. She introduced me to friends as Emily, the girl who keeps my company running. For a while, I thought I had everything. A career. A relationship. A future. Then I started noticing little changes in Daniel. He became secretive with his phone. He canceled plans. He started coming home late. Whenever I asked what was wrong, he told me I was imagining things. I believed him. Until one Friday night. Daniel had left his phone on the kitchen counter. A message appeared on the screen. I wasn't trying to read his private messages. But I saw one sentence. "When are you finally going to tell Emily?" My stomach dropped. I asked Daniel about it. He immediately became defensive. "Why are you reading my messages?" I didn't read them. I saw one. "You're being paranoid." That word stayed with me. Paranoid. I asked him again. "Is there someone else?" He looked away. And that was my answer. After 3 years together, Daniel finally admitted that he had been seeing another woman. 4 months. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I simply said, "We're done." Daniel tried to explain. He said it was complicated. He said he was confused. He said he still loved me. But I had already made my decision. The next morning, I packed my things. Before leaving, I told him, "You didn't lose me because you made one mistake. You lost me because you kept making the same choice." Then I walked away. I thought the hardest part was over. It wasn't. Monday morning, I went to work. I wanted to keep my personal life separate from my job. Victoria called me into her office. She closed the door. Then she said, "Daniel told me what happened." I nodded. "I don't want this affecting work." Victoria stared at me. "You broke my son's heart." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Victoria, Daniel cheated on me." She waved her hand. "I don't want details." "Then why are we talking about it?" Her expression changed. "Because you're still working here." I immediately understood. She was angry. But I told myself she would eventually calm down. I was wrong. 3 days later, Victoria criticized my work for the first time. Then again. And again. A scheduling mistake that wasn't mine became my responsibility. A shipment delay caused by a supplier became my fault. A minor typo in a report became a formal warning. It was obvious. She was building a case against me. So I started documenting everything. Every email. Every warning. Every conversation. Every instruction. I wasn't planning revenge. I was protecting myself. At least, that's what I thought. 6 weeks after my breakup with Daniel, Victoria called me into her office. There was an envelope on her desk. I already knew what it was. "You are being terminated," she said. I looked at the letter. "What's the reason?" "Performance." I almost laughed. "Which part of my performance?" She didn't answer directly. Instead, she said, "This company needs people who are loyal." There it was. The real reason. I looked at her. I've been loyal to this company for 2 years. Not to my family. I stood up. You can't expect an employee to stay in a relationship with your son just to keep her job. Victoria's face became cold. "Watch your words." I picked up my belongings. Then I said something I'll never forget. "You fired me because I ended a relationship." She didn't respond. I walked out. And for the first time in 2 years, I didn't feel afraid. I felt free. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table. I opened my laptop. I wasn't looking for revenge. I was looking at my employment records. While reviewing old work emails, I noticed something. There were discrepancies in employee overtime records. Several workers had regularly worked longer shifts than what appeared on official reports. There were also maintenance complaints about company vehicles. Some of those complaints had been marked as resolved. But I remembered employees still talking about the same problems months later. Then I found another issue. Several workplace complaints had been forwarded to management. And some of those complaints had never received a documented response. I stared at the screen. Suddenly, everything made sense. Victoria had always been extremely careful about appearances. But the company wasn't as perfect as it looked. I had 2 choices. Forget everything and move on. Or report what I had personally witnessed through proper channels. I chose the second. Not because I hated Victoria. Because I knew other employees were still working there. This part is important. I didn't create fake evidence. I didn't hack into anything. I didn't threaten Victoria. I didn't post confidential information online. I simply gathered the records I was legally allowed to keep and contacted the appropriate workplace authorities. I explained what I had personally observed. I provided dates. I provided copies of relevant communications. And then I stepped back. I didn't know what would happen next. But I knew it wasn't my job to decide the company's punishment. That was the authorities' job. 3 weeks later, an investigation began. Victoria called me. I almost didn't answer. Finally, I did. "Emily, did you report us?" I said. "I reported workplace concerns." "You know what you're doing?" "Yes." "You're trying to destroy my company." "No." I paused. "I'm telling the truth about what I saw." She became silent. Then she said, "You'll regret this." I replied, "I already regretted trusting you." And I ended the call. My hands were shaking. Not because I was afraid of her. Because I knew things were about to become much bigger than our personal conflict. Over the following weeks, investigators reviewed company records. Employees were interviewed. Schedules were examined. Vehicle maintenance documents were checked. Overtime records were compared with actual work schedules. I wasn't involved in every part of the investigation. I didn't need to be. The evidence could speak for itself. Eventually, the company was required to correct several workplace problems and deal with financial penalties connected to violations that investigators identified. Victoria was furious. But there was nothing she could do to change the facts. The person she had fired was no longer an employee. She couldn't control me. She couldn't rewrite my employment history. And she couldn't erase records simply because she didn't like what they revealed. Then Daniel called. I hadn't spoken to him since the breakup. He said, "My mom is blaming you for everything." I laughed quietly. "Of course she is. Emily, you didn't have to do this. I didn't do anything to your family. You reported the company." I reported what I witnessed. He became quiet. Then he said, "She thinks you planned all of this." I answered, "No. Your mother planned my firing." She thought hurting me would make her feel better. Daniel didn't say anything. Finally, he asked, "Do you hate me?" I thought about it. No. Really? No. I just don't want you in my life anymore. That was the last conversation we ever had. Months passed. I found another job. The new company wasn't glamorous. The office wasn't huge. But my boss respected me. Nobody cared who I dated. Nobody threatened my career because of a breakup. For the first time in a long time, I could breathe. Then I heard that Bennett Logistics had changed dramatically. Some employees had left. Operations had been reduced. The company had paid significant costs dealing with the consequences of the investigation. Victoria had to restructure several parts of the business. But the company didn't completely disappear. And honestly, I didn't want it to. I never wanted hundreds of innocent employees to lose their jobs. I wanted the problems fixed. That's the difference between revenge and justice. Almost a year later, I unexpectedly saw Victoria at a professional networking event. She looked different. Older. Tired. She walked toward me. For a second, neither of us said anything. Then she said, "You look happy." I smiled. "I am." She nodded. "I owe you an apology. I wasn't expecting that." She continued. "I treated you unfairly." I said, "Yes, you did." She looked down. "I blamed you for what happened to my son." "You did. I should have stayed out of your relationship." "You should have." There was a long silence. Then she asked, "Do you hate me?" I thought about the woman who had fired me. The woman who had tried to damage my career. The woman who had blamed me for her son's mistakes. And I realized something. I didn't hate her anymore. "I don't hate you," I said. "But I don't trust you." She nodded. "I understand." Then she walked away. And that was the end. Looking back, I learned 3 important things. First, never let someone convince you that their personal relationship gives them control over your future. Daniel was Victoria's son. That didn't make his mistakes my responsibility. Second, document everything. When someone starts treating you unfairly, don't immediately fight emotionally. Keep records. Save legitimate communications. Stay professional. And protect yourself. Third, don't confuse revenge with justice. I didn't destroy Victoria's company. I didn't invent accusations. I didn't create fake evidence. I reported what I had personally witnessed and allowed the proper authorities to investigate. Whatever happened afterward was the result of the company's own decisions. Victoria thought firing me would make me powerless. Instead, losing that job gave me something I desperately needed. A fresh start. Today, I'm 27. I have a better job. A better life. And absolutely no desire to go back to the person I was before. Sometimes the best revenge isn't watching your enemy suffer. Sometimes the best revenge is becoming so strong. So independent. And so successful. That you no longer care what happens to them. My name is Emily Carter. I lost a boyfriend. I lost a job. But I gained something much more valuable. I gained my freedom. And honestly, that was the best revenge I could have ever received. If you enjoyed Emily's story and want to hear more emotional, shocking, and unforgettable revenge stories, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. And I want to hear from you. What would you have done if you were Emily? Would you have walked away quietly? Or would you have reported everything you knew? Tell me your answer in the comments below. Your support means a lot to me. So like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful revenge and betrayal stories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.